secret that South Park is one of my favorite shows, and it's not really hard to see why. With great humor, characters, messages, and social commentary, it stayed mostly consistent and has managed to stay relevant 23 years after its premiere. But the most interesting character in the entire show is Eric Cartman. Anyone who's seen at least one episode of South Park knows that Cartman is a bigoted asshole, and we observe this not just in his words, but his attitude towards people of different race, religion, and sexual orientation. He's a whiny, ignorant kid who, for the most part, is reluctantly accepted as a friend by Stan, Kyle, and Kenny, the other three main leads of the show. Cartman is the icon of South Park, and the favorite character of the show's creators, Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
That's just how it goes now. That's just how we roll now. That's just how it goes now. That's just how we...
There's a lot to talk about regarding Cartman, but it is necessary to talk about what he is most known for. Being a massive asshole that no one likes and is the reason for a lot of the trouble in the town.
I bet him he couldn't do it. I bet him $100. Come on, Cartman, it's not your fault. No, I know, I'm just fucking stoked I don't have to pay him. Oh, that's real nice. He was your friend, you fat fuck.
Cartman isn't afraid to do what he wants when he thinks it's a good idea, often disregarding others' opinion on the matter.
You ate the skin off of every piece of chicken! Well, I saved you all the chicken part. The skin's the best part.
He has no limitation on what he'll do, and frankly, could be why he's entertaining to watch. In episodes such as Scott Tenorman Must Die, Ginger Kids, Tonsil Trouble, and many others, Cartman does extremely distasteful and borderline psychotic things. And most of the time, he doesn't seem to have any remorse for what he has done, so it seems like he might be psychotic. In the episode 201, Cartman is informed that his father was Jack Tenorman and that he was responsible for his murder. At first, it seems that Cartman is upset about this fact, as he is seen crying outside. However, it's revealed that he's only crying about it because his father was Ginger. Along with Cartman seemingly careless about his actions, he also shows signs of being a sociopath. In the episode Jared Has AIDS, Cartman sits outside Butter's house while his parents abuse him, eating popcorn as if it were some sort of show. Another example of this is in the episode Bass to Mouth, in which Cartman is greatly amused by the news of Pete Melman shitting his pants during school. Cartman admits that the reason why he finds this news to be so funny is because Pete is greatly embarrassed and horrified by what has happened. Sociopaths lack empathy, the ability to stand in someone else's shoes and understand how they feel, so therefore they gain great pleasure in other people's pain and suffering, and Cartman has shown to enjoy being such a massive prick. However, plenty of the awful things Cartman has done also ultimately blew up in his face. One such example is in the episode Le Petit Tourette, where Cartman spots a kid with Tourette syndrome across a toy store, so the next day he pretends to have Tourette syndrome by swearing profusely in class. This catches the attention of Chris Hansen, who wants to interview him on Dateline. Cartman sees this as a perfect opportunity to spout anti-Semitic hate speech on national television. This turns out to backfire big time, as Cartman is really diagnosed with Tourette syndrome and actually starts swearing uncontrollably. Other Cartman backfires are in episodes like Christian Rock Hard, Breast Cancer Show Ever, Freak Strike, and Human Centipede, where Cartman either gets his ass handed to him or simply doesn't get what he wants.
Do this to me, God. Next time you're gonna get my hopes up, could you please take me to a grease monkey? Because I like to get lubed up before I get fucked!
Cartman is a master manipulator. He's perfectly capable of manipulating individuals and even masses of people for his advantage, and we see this in episodes such as Kenny Dies, The Passion of the Jew, and Casa Bonita. Cartman uses the fact that he's a child to get affection from people by simply stating that he's just a little boy. He has also been able to trick his own friends into believing that he doesn't mean to do anything wrong, even if it's accidental, such as in the episode Poor and Stupid, where Cartman makes Kyle and Stan believe he is crying about thinking he'd always be fat, when in reality he was just upset about not being poor and stupid enough for NASCAR. He's able to read the psychology of other people very well, just like in the episode Tss. He's able to inspire leadership like in Ginger Kids. He is also very business savvy, like in Cartman Land and Christian Rock Hard. These are also commonly seen pitfalls among high-functioning sociopaths. One other element is Cartman's obsession with power, which is a common driving motivation for most sociopaths, as they are often unable to experience any meaningful positive feelings, and more often than not, the only sensation that brings them pleasure is a feeling having power over other things. But Cartman's manipulation doesn't stop there. In one of South Park's most iconic episodes, Scott Turnerman Must Die, Cartman comes up with an elaborate plan to get back at Scott for humiliating him and taking his money. Eric shows that he is a great actor and that he is able to manipulate people into doing exactly what he wants without them even realizing it. Cartman knows exactly what people want to hear and see, so he uses that to his advantage. In the episode Christian Rock Hard, Cartman uses the power of religious belief to succeed and go platinum. He knew that the very religious Christians wanted to hear beautiful songs about Jesus and gave them exactly what they wanted, despite not caring about it at all. He also uses fear to get people to agree with him, like in the episode Ginger Kids, where Kyle, Stan, and Kenny turn Cartman into a ginger to teach him a lesson about intolerance. This takes a detour, however, as Cartman rounds up all the ginger kids at school and starts a clan of some sort where the gingers try to kill everyone who isn't a ginger. Despite the fact that Cartman is a master manipulator, he is really dumb when it comes to school. He doesn't know how to spell very well, as shown in Hooked on Monkey Phonics.
Chair. C-H-A-R-E. Damn it, how come I get the hard one?
He isn't doing very well in school and states this in the episode Quest for Ratings.
I can't lose this extracurricular credit. I need it to pass 4th grade.
He is incredibly lazy and tries to get out of homework by getting someone to do it for him, like in D-Yikes. Cartman also gets confused about what certain things are and says things that don't make sense, but to him, it does. Which brings me to the point that Cartman thinks differently from the other boys, as if he sees things differently from what they actually are. The biggest example of this is in the episode Fish Sticks, where Jimmy and Cartman make up the funniest joke ever. In Cartman's mind, he was the one who created the joke, and the situation in his mind keeps changing to things that don't make any sense. Cartman is just a child with a wild imagination that often covers up reality, and it's a possibility that he could be doing this purposefully. So how did Cartman become the way he is now? Well, the main factor that contributes to this is how he is raised by his mother, Leanne Cartman. Leanne is the town slut who doesn't give him the right kind of parenting, and Eric doesn't have any kind of father figure present. He is constantly made fun of for being the son of a town whore and being extremely overweight. Leanne is easily among the worst role model a child could have. She enables Eric's most twisted behaviors.
Oh, that's a big boy, isn't he?
One example is Up the Down Steroid, where Cartman tries to cheat in the Special Olympics by pretending to be a disabled kid to win $1,000. Cartman sets absolutely no boundaries where there should be, yields into her son's manipulation even after experiencing some success, and is completely incompetent and perhaps indifferent at disciplining her son. It's highly suggested that she's directly responsible for Eric's anti-Semitism and potentially other hateful ideas. Moreover, her sexual promiscuity has had devastating effects on his psyche, and his perception of sexuality is completely warped and twisted, and he potentially has a very distorted sexual identity, which are catalysts for problematic behavior in children.
Yes, hon? If you were in a German Scheiße video, you'd tell me, right?
Sure, hon. Good night.
Her behavior is also suggested to lead way to child neglect, as there were several episodes in which she was having sex with people when Eric was in need of support, completely oblivious of his needs. Her love for him seems very self-centered, and she's only using him to validate herself, plus she seems to have no respect for Eric as an actual human being. All of this is terrible parenting that can lead to devastating results on a child. Eric is also shown to have actual feelings and emotional attachments towards inanimate objects. His feelings towards Clyde Frog, Polly Prissy Pants, and his other dolls are very typical examples of abused and neglected children bonding with toys and other comforting objects when they have a profound mistrust towards their parents and have failed to bond with them. With his dolls, he finds the comfort he's unable to find through his mom. He's also unable to find this comfort through his human friends because he's learned not to trust other people in society early on, and that's showing his weakness, insecurities, and feelings to other people will only hurt him in the long run, which is fairly common in neglected children. Eric uses his toys as a means to find warmth and bonding, thus using them to validate his feelings and insecurities. This is him coming to terms with his desires of being admired, trusted, and loved like every other human being, but he can't ever explicitly express those desires to himself because of how walled off he has been forced to become, so he resorts to comfort objects for this purpose. He craves love, but can't accept this fact because he's learned that craving for love only leads to being hurt, and this is an escape for his subconscious. His need to be a normal boy is there, and is screaming to be heard, but he suppresses those feelings. Now, of course, no analysis of Eric Cartman would be complete without the breakdown of the relationship between Cartman and Heidi Turner. In the second episode of season 20, Heidi Turner deletes all of her social media and cuts off all technology from her life because of the harassment she's been receiving online because of an internet troll called SkankHunt42, who is Kyle's dad, surprisingly enough. In an effort to try and stop any future harassment, the boys of South Park Elementary get together and forcibly remove Cartman from social media by writing all of his stuff. This takes a back turn, however, as the girls cut ties with the boys the very next day. This is where Cartman and Heidi's relationship begins to develop. They hang out together and bond over not using social media anymore. Heidi eventually apologizes to Cartman for accusing him, and they become friends. By the episode Wiener's Out, they begin a romantic relationship as boyfriend and girlfriend. By the last few episodes of season 20, primarily the end of serialization as we know it, Cartman experiences noticeable tension with Heidi after Kyle informed him that Troll Trace would allow Heidi to read his posts on social media, including a misogynistic rant about the newer Ghostbusters movie, despite neither Cartman or Heidi using the internet. The season concludes with the tension between Heidi and Cartman remaining active as he begins to mistrust her and other women, while still reaffirming his own love for her. He even overtly wipes Heidi's kiss off of his cheek while she turns her back and walks towards her home. In season 20, Cartman has somewhat changed his character and has become less of a manipulative piece of shit. However, it will not last long because at the start of season 21, we see Cartman deflate at Heidi's presence as he has started to regain his access to technology. The reason why Cartman and Heidi were even a couple in the first place was because there was no technology to get between them. But thanks to technology, specifically Alexa, being reintroduced into Eric's daily routine, he no longer shows any interest in Heidi. Heidi can't be a digital assistant. She can't ignore Cartman's degrading comments or demanding her. She's a human being that deserves to be treated properly, and that takes work. So therefore, Eric is bored with the only girlfriend he's ever had in favor of a robot who's effortless to be with and makes him laugh, yet he never has to invest anything back into that relationship. So Heidi dumps Cartman then and there. Then, in the very next episode, he sends her a voicemail threatening to commit suicide if she doesn't get back with him. This is another example of Cartman using fear to get what he wants. We know that as soon as they get back together, Cartman acts like he hates her again. He does this to control Heidi and slowly manipulate her to be subservient, just like Alexa. At one point, Heidi breaks down and says that relationships aren't 50-50, they're 100-100. And she wants to put in 100% to please Cartman, but she can't because she has expectations that Cartman will return her respect and devotion, so they wind up right back in the mess they were in. As a matter of fact, things begin to take a turn for the worse as Cartman tries to get Heidi killed for taking too long to get ready in the episode Sons of Witches. She's trying to be arm candy for him and trying to get him to notice her, yet he responds by trying to get her killed. When Heidi tries to dump him again, Cartman blames his diet for his shitty behavior, and he swears he'll change. And knowing Cartman, he never does. In fact, he does the opposite and changes Heidi into a female version of him by tricking her into eating actual fast food and claiming that it's vegan. And this makes him happier because the only thing that satisfies Cartman is Cartman. In doing this, Cartman has created a monster.
I'm sorry, Kyle, but everybody's trying to live life the best they can. It's hard enough without your people always trying to get ahead.
In the episode Moss Piglets, Heidi drinks a whole container of water bears, killing them in the process. Heidi and Cartman's relationship was built on narcissism. A narcissist surrounds themselves with people they consider to be special and above the rest, but over time, these people disappoint the narcissist as it's impossible to live up to their shining standards. Once you have disappointed them, you become much less interesting to them. Another sign of narcissism is conversation hoarding, where the non-narcissistic partner struggles to have their views and feelings heard. And when they do get a word in, if it's not in agreement with the narcissist, their comments will be either corrected, dismissed, or completely ignored. This is the perpetual sighing and eye-rolling when we see out of Cartman when Heidi is in his presence. A narcissist can be very engaging and sociable, given that you're fulfilling what they desire and giving them all of your attention. The real reason why Cartman begs Heidi to stay with him is not because he suddenly realizes he loves her, but to keep his bloated ego dominant in the situation. After making Heidi his carbon copy, Eric experiences what it's like to deal with himself, and he isn't really okay with that. Heidi has become the dominant force in the relationship, and in acting just like Cartman, she has usurped all of his power.
Oh, yes, master. Let me judge that science fair for you, sir. God, will you stop?
But fortunately, in the season 21 finale, Heidi dumps Cartman in the hopes to get her life back to normal. So what makes Eric Cartman such a great character? How can someone do something that is so utterly, irredeemably abhorrent, yet be so likable and entertaining to watch at the same time? It's the unpredictability of his character. You never know when he will be an evil genius, a giant moron, or somewhere in between. Cartman is a symbol of arrogant, self-serving narcissism, something that is consistently pushing behind the evils of world issues and current events. He is the most hated and most appreciated character in South Park. He represents the truth of corruption. Corruption sits behind a kind smile, a sweet voice, and even a childlike innocence, when in reality, his corruption is premeditated, very deliberate, and very guilt-ridden. Not that he feels an ounce of guilt or remorse most of the time. Cartman represents the dark nature of us all, and most importantly, the dark nature of evil in the world, and he plays it off smoothly as anything else a child does. If nothing else, he is the embodiment of everything we want to do, but can't.
That's all, folks.